Welcome to ESVN, the Emma Sports Vigeland Network show. My name is Emma Vigeland. Before we get to the show today, we got to take care of the subscriber count, guys. Come on. We're so close to 10,000. So close. If we reach it, Bradley and I will potentially drink on air next week or maybe the one after that. We shall see. YouTube.com/ESVN show. Put on push notifications, subscribe, rate us 5 stars on Apple and Spotify. Hello, Bradley Alsop.
Didn't we say fire, lighting ourselves on fire?
No.
Self-immolating.
Someone said that. Someone has like a death wish in this office, and it's not me.
Eating a frog.
It's
live frog.
Someone named Bradley, which I mean,
shaving my head.
Have you spoken to someone about these
frosted
impulses?
tips before I light myself on fire?
Right.
What do you think? That's what I thought we agreed on. I thought we agreed on a multiple tiered punishment schedule.
The frosted tips could act as a retardant, right?
Yeah,
for
right.
The fire.
My fresh dye.
Yeah, that's the that takes out the flames, I guess, right? It's a fire extinguisher because it's so damn cold.
Well, we are close. We are close.
Very
9.86 thousand. So yeah, we can definitely take a shot for every 1,000 subscriber we have.
Yeah. Okay, another death wish situation.
That I think is a good idea.
We got Evil Knievel in this studio here.
We'll be like the TikTokers who, like, when they get an emoji, like, they have to, like, do something. That'll be us. Like,
I would really not like to do a TikTok
monetize our lives like that.
I am not a TikTok person. I tried. I got a TikTok. I just have no impulse to go towards it, to check it out. I'm really set in my ways. Even though I have Blue Sky now, I mean, Twitter is just the one I reflexively go to, or Xer, or whatever it's become. So I don't even know social media is just completely dying at this point, but that's beside the point.
Well, TikTok for me is the one where the algorithm is actually too effective and too
addicting.
Yeah, like it feels like you are taking drugs.
Okay, good that kids are using that more than any other app. Let's get into some of the news today. I will say some of the rundown of what we're going to talk about. Dan Snyder finally sells the Commanders. We'll start off with that. The labor coalition forming around star running backs, which is really interesting in the NFL. They also released some 2023 throwback uniforms. I also want to maybe touch on Mbappe getting that massive offer from the Saudis. And then we will open up the phone lines. Right now, the phones are called into, but the voicemail is on.
And we should probably touch on the Women's World Cup slightly.
Yes.
Just that, I mean, it's been a little, I will admit, because of the 17 to 18 hour time difference between us and Australia and New Zealand, it's been slightly more difficult for me to follow than I've liked, but
we will touch on it. I soccer is already out of my worldview for the most part, but
please call in about it too if anyone has any real thoughts. But the U.S. beat Vietnam 3-0 to start off the group stages, which I thought was a great showing.
I saw they
for
were
them.
like minus 2,000 favorites, obviously.
Right.
Yeah,
and they're in kind of a interesting group stage. And Canada actually only beat Nigeria 1-0, which was a for the reigning Olympic champions, kind of a small victory. But we'll see how everything continues to go in the group stages. It's still very early on. It's only been the group stages started on Thursday of last week, and so we still have a lot of ways to go in there as well.
And it's just the kind of situation where the United States women's national team is the favorite by, I think, the consensus favorite at the very least, but we will get into it, I think, more as the field narrows.
It should be a tie between Nigeria and Canada, 0-0. Actually, no goals. Even less impressive for Canada from that match. But
interesting.
So we'll keep an eye on it for sure.
Let's right off the bat talk about Dan Snyder here. So the Commanders, or the team that is probably not going to be known as the Commanders for the foreseeable future. I mean, maybe this year, but it seems like they're signaling that they're going to change the name because it was so slapdash when they even decided on it.
The Josh Harris's,
the waning years of the
magic
of Dan Snyder's tenure. The sale was $6 billion to Dan Snyder. He owes $1 billion $1 billion in loans. And then he also, as a part of the sale, was fined $60 million for workplace misconduct by the NFL. We'll get into that in a second. But Snyder sold to Josh Harris, the group that he leads, and Josh Harris also owns Bradley's New Jersey Devils, the Philadelphia 76ers, and now he has an NFL franchise, which is, I would imagine, his crown jewel, especially because, by all accounts, the league was so desperate and the owners were so desperate to vote Dan Snyder out that it appears they may have cut some corners in terms of, like, he doesn't have exactly the amount of money that would have necessarily been required to purchase a team, but they wanted to so desperately move on from this horrible human being that they unanimously approved the $6.05 billion sale when they met last week in Minneapolis. Now, just to recap here, because this is a big story with a lot of interweaving parts, what led to this sale here was that there was a first investigation of Daniel Snyder where there were allegations of workplace misconduct and sexual harassment led by Beth Wilkinson, and he was only fined $10 million after that, and that was in 2021. It was buried on a weekend. It was in the middle of the pandemic. People were focused on other things, and none of those findings were made public. But then things started to drip out, including some of the emails that were related to John Gruden making racist and sexist remarks. At the same time, Dan Snyder was openly essentially saying to other owners that he had blackmail on ex-owner or on Roger Goodell. Then, as the spotlight got a little bit too hot on the fact that the NFL did not release any of the findings from the first investigation, then there was a second independent investigation. Again, this is not all at all independent. These are lawyers hired by the NFL, so they are keeping that in mind 100% as they conduct this investigation. This time by Mary Jo White, formerly of the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District. She did over a year-long probe into the major allegations that were kind of coming out of the House committee that had been investigating Dan Snyder after those initial results were buried, which was the sexual harassment and, probably more important to the owners, the financial misconduct, which was alleged and basically proven and corroborated by Mary Jo White's investigation into this, which found that basically Dan Snyder was withholding ticket revenue that was supposed to be shared via league policies. Allegedly, again, this is not in a court of law. This is from their investigation.
That's called business.
Yeah. Having two separate books, pretending you're taking in less ticket revenue so you can hold on to it and not sharing it with the rest of the league, which goes into a pool that's supposed to go to the other owners, by the way. So they're definitely pissed about this. And that's why that vote was unanimous. And why Snyder had alienated every friend that he potentially had in the league in the 2+ decades that he had purchased the team. When he first bought the Washington franchise, he was considered like the perfect owner, because for the NFL's purposes, he had a crap ton of money. He grew up at least a Washington fan. I'm not sure in the area. He was passionate about the team, and they wanted to move on from some of the other past issues that the Washington franchise had. Even with racism, I believe that they were the team that's owner was the last to allow for integration into the facilities. If you don't mind double checking that for me, Brad.
But yes, but you're right. He was born in Silver Spring, Maryland, and went to the University of Maryland. So he's born and bred in the DMV area.
Yeah, he's a big fan, but he's like a total insane bully psychopath, basically. And he had one by one lost all of the other billionaire friends in the 32 owners club, or 31 because the Packers don't have a billionaire owner. And in the end, he had one friend left, and that was Jerry Jones. And Jerry, I think it seems like, cut him off after he found out, hey, you're taking my money? I can't have that. And another part of the problem, too, is that Dan Snyder, after all of this time being so toxic, was unable to get either the governor or the government of Maryland or the government of Virginia to work with him on building a new stadium, because FedEx Field is a total shithole. Like a total shithole. Remember, they almost injured, was it Jalen Hurts last year?
Because the fans like peering over to get an autograph or a high five, literally the railing collapsed and it almost hit him. The weight of like 8 people almost like descended upon Jalen Hurts as he was walking out, simply walking into the tunnel on an away game.
and I've danced around it, but the allegations by Tiffany Johnson, the former marketing employee, about sexual harassment by Snyder specifically was outrageous. And
to say nothing of the numerous reports about the disgusting treatment of women reporters and women cheerleaders in the facility and in the area, of how numerous execs and other boosters and friends of Snyder's would just be absolutely heinous towards these women reporters and these cheerleaders in the building. And just to answer your question, yes, George Preston Marshall, when he was the owner of the Washington Redskins, of course the original iteration of this team 50 years ago, was the last owner to agree to integrate the Redskins football team. But then he had sold the team to somebody else, Jack Kent Cooke, and then Jack Kent Cooke sold it to Snyder in the late 90s.
And now Harris has a hold of it. And I mean, outside of the embarrassment from the way that the organization was run, the potential criminality that was involved with like book cooking and stuff like that, was the fact that they only had one playoff win in 2005 in the entire ownership tenure of Dan Snyder.
18 years ago.
and in part was like, we talk about how he was a fan of the team, not enough of a fan to actually invest in team facilities and not cut corners and cut into his own cut of, not artfully said, but you get what I'm saying, of the team in order to make the team better. I mean, the best owners spend. So he might love the team, but he doesn't love it more than himself. And he made that abundantly clear. And, I mean, like, that's I don't think Josh Harris really solves Washington's woes in that way, since he's pretty overextended now, owning 3 professional teams. And it doesn't seem like he was able to just do a David Tepper and parachute in himself. I mean, he has Magic Johnson owning 4% as a minority owner, for example. That's fun, though. At least they have like some sort of likable human being in the ownership group there. But
he's also a general partner for the football club Crystal Palace in the UK. So he's so he has just like an enormous amount of money put into numerous sports teams across 2 continents. It's a lot going on for one owner.
It's a good bet. I mean, if you have the money and you're one of these rich ghouls, that especially an NFL team, as gambling and these TV deals and streaming deals continue to get inked, I mean, they just are going to continue to appreciate in value.
He notably
Dan Snyder
also
is an example of this. He bought it for less than $1 billion.
Like pennies on the dollar base. I'll double check the number.
Double check, please. Yeah, less than $1 billion. He now sold it for $6 billion. He had $1 billion in loans. $60 million of that is going towards the NFL in the form of a fine.
He paid $800 million for it. $800 million for the Redskins.
So
in 1999.
he has now made billions. And this dude once said that he would never, ever change the name. Yes, he did. He would never, ever sell. Yes, he did. And that's the thing about these guys. The problem with teams being owned by oligarchs who have agendas that are completely profit and self-involved, or self-centered, I should say, profit and self-centered, is that you can have a guy like this who's completely incompetent and malevolent run it into the ground, or you can have a guy purchase, and usually they are guys. You can have a guy purchase it and move the team elsewhere because they get a better deal on the stadium, and the fans have no recourse. So like, Washington fans are going to be celebrating. I would be if I was a Washington fan as well, or if I were one. But at the same time, the systemic problems of just having to entrust the future of your franchise to a billionaire who has no qualifications except for having enough money to buy the team. I mean, that's not going away.
Yeah, and I think, well, and also interestingly enough, so Josh Harris is also a DMV area born and bred guy too. He was born in Chevy Chase, Maryland, outside of DC, and went to prep school in DC.
I knew you were gonna say Chevy Chase.
Yeah, so he's got like, yeah, so Silver Spring, Chevy Chase, kind of like the Tony, Montgomery County suburbs of Washington D.C. So at least he seemingly, I imagine, has some sort of rooting or at least kind of vested interest in a home team of his, so to speak, being good, along with obviously now his monetary interest for how much he bought the team for. But as you're saying, there's going to be a lot of work necessary to remove or at least try to excise some of the rot that has generated over 2+ decades of Dan Snyder's ownership and mismanagement of the team.
Yeah.
And winning back or currying favor with some long-suffering Washington fans who, for the most part, have either probably suffered alongside and still rooted for this team despite the enormous amount of resentment and enormous amount of failure that has defined this team over the last 24 years since Snyder took over and bought the team. It's not just going to be enough to put like maybe a little bit of a better product on the field. There's going to take a lot more time to actually engender some trust in that fan base that has been almost irrevocably broken.
Can you imagine growing up as a kid in that area? I mean,
with a team that was
going to be a Ravens fan,
right? But also
they won. I mean, in our lifetime, right? Like what we're in
Ravens have won a Super Bowl, Two Super Bowls, right?
They
early
won
2000s and 2013.
Yeah, and
2001, I think maybe.
Yeah, it was the 2000-2001 season. They beat the Giants,
right.
Like destroyed them.
Right.
And then there was the Flacco one in the Harbaugh Bowl. Yeah, where the power went out.
The Harbaugh, yeah. Interesting how that happened.
Yeah, I mean, very interesting.
Yeah.
I think there actually is no.
Yeah, I actually think nothing. It was just a actual power outage. No, for sure, and I think there's that idea that like literally a team, like a team close in the same kind of like state and vicinity has been significantly better run and better managed in a city that is also, I think, like honestly like smaller, probably has like less dollars coming into it in Baltimore relative to literally the nation's capital.
Yeah,
and seeing them have more success, and also just seeing your team that even when you're taking the Ravens out of it, a team itself that actually had a little bit of like a storied history before Snyder bought them.
Mm-hmm.
They were a team that was actually competitive, that did have some legendary players on it, that actually competed for championships, and he literally almost single-handedly drove that into the ground.
It's an NFC East team. I mean, let's be real. This is the only division in the NFL that has won. Each team has won a Super Bowl, and there was a lot of storied history with the Washington franchise. And I mean, he's the worst owner that I've ever seen exist.
It's hard. It's from all aspects.
We're Knicks fans, and I mean, Dolan is a saint compared to this dude. I mean, I'm going to be real with you. Like, at least Dolan cares and spends money to the cap every single time, and he does it for the Rangers, and he does it for the Knicks. He cares about at least spending money on his team.
Yeah, like he's a repulsive individual.
Horrific.
But even the Knicks potentially have had more success than the Washington football franchise has since Dan Snyder started owning the team. And so all that is to say is I understand, if you're a Washington fan, a bit of a sigh of relief or just some jubilance that Dan Snyder is gone. That even despite his golden parachute, Dan Snyder is no longer involved in day-to-day operations with this team. But I think realistic Washington fans also know that this is a sobering reminder that there is going to be a lot of work that needs to be done for this to have any meaningful impact of kind of orienting the ship that is this team that has been kind of torn and ran asunder by Dan Snyder for years and years and years and years.
I like ran asunder.
Yeah, I'm just going with the ship. Had to stay with the ship metaphor for as long as I could.
I mean, you did it well.
And also, one more thing, just to your point, this is also just one in a long line of examples that are testaments to just how exorbitant team valuations have come since a lot of these teams have necessarily been bought. With how much Snyder paid relative to how much he cashed out for, regardless of team success. It goes to show that, especially with how things have gone with revenue sharing and TV agreements and things like that, and sports betting and fantasy or whatever the case may be, other revenue streams for actual teams, not the players, but teams themselves, how an investment for Snyder of $800 million leading to a $6 billion sale for a team that has literally been one of the most embarrassing, putrid franchises in all of sports. And the same thing, not to the same level, of course, because there, I think, was less organizational mismanagement, maybe not as much success in terms of similarity, playoff success, but with what Michael Jordan just did with the sale of the Charlotte Hornets. Yeah. Michael Jordan bought the Hornets for, I think, a little bit under $300 million and cashed out for $3 billion for a team that, since he bought it in 2010, has done really nothing notable at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, it just goes to show how valuable these franchises are and how this industry has exploded in that way. Left Field is Best writes in saying, why does Dolan seem to manage the Rangers better than the Knicks? Because he doesn't meddle. I mean, that's another lesson for Snyder.
Right, I think he cares less about the Rangers, potentially.
He cares. He doesn't know. He actually has more self-awareness in that he doesn't care about them because they're less glitz and glam, but he just lets the hockey people do their thing. He's hired some questionable hockey people, like Glenn Sather is an example, but who was worm tongue whispering in Dolan's ear for a while, and he's all about grit and toughness as opposed to skill, which I can't stand. But yeah, he knows that he doesn't know anything about them, so he kind of lets the hockey people do their thing. That's what owners should be doing, and that's why they're completely useless. These should be incorporated teams, publicly owned, and then the hockey, the football, the basketball, the baseball people can do their thing in that way. Let's turn to another story regarding the NFL. This is an NFL-heavy show today because Bradley just mentioned how much these teams have exploded in value. And unfortunately, even when you see, Patrick Mahomes, after he won his first Super Bowl, signed a $500 million contract, those are incredible, incredible outliers in the league. For a great majority of the players in the league, they are not receiving the value that is commensurate to their services or that is proportional to what they're providing. As you can see a team that's so poorly run, like Washington, go from, when it was purchased by Snyder in 1999, $800 million to being worth over $6 billion. The players should be keeping up with that in the way that they are not. And that has been most acutely felt by these star running backs who, over the weekend, they had a Zoom meeting led by Austin Eckler, who is on the last year of his deal with the Los Angeles Chargers. And Eckler and, I believe, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, who isn't even in Las Vegas and apparently has no plans to report to camp, which I'm a little concerned from him personally, because I could see the Raiders completely just rescinding the tag, and then he's a free agent and has no ability to really get a real contract in this offseason. But I appreciate his fire. That's a little bit of an aside, but they all met to discuss the future of their position, which is frankly in doubt right now, because all of these young kids who are the best athletes in their little league or in their high school are going to look at this and say, maybe I should switch my position. If I'm a running back, I should play receiver. I should play corner. I should play safety, whatever it is. And this is what Nick Chubb had to say at training camp. Nick Chubb, thankfully for him, did get an extension, and that was, I think, in the range of what the Giants were offering to Saquon Barkley, a little bit more, and we can get to Saquon in a bit. But yeah, I mean it's a tough market right now. These running backs, the problem with how the collective bargaining agreement is structured, the problem with the way that the NFL has allowed college football to do whatever the hell it wants and gives these guys ensures that these guys have to play 3 years of college ball before they can get to the pros. They are running these guys into the ground before they can make any real meaningful money for their services. But this is Nick Chubb at Browns training camp. The question is kind of soft, but you should be able to hear his response.
We're definitely in a tough situation. Running backs as a whole, Saquon's a great player, and you can ask anyone around the league or even on the Giants how much he means to that team. So it's hard seeing him not get what he deserves.
There's a report that some of you guys got on a Zoom call yesterday to kind of discuss the situation. Anything that came out of that makes you feel positive?
Well, I mean, right now it's just talk. There's really nothing we can do. We're kind of handcuffed with the situation. But I mean, I felt what I took from it. McCaffrey and Derrick Henry and Saquon all had a lot of good points. But the biggest thing is that we're in a position that our production hurts us the most. If we go out there and run for 2,000 yards with so many carries, the next year they're gonna say, you're probably worn down. That's the biggest thing that I took from it. It's just, it's tough. It hurts us just to go out there and do good. It hurts us at the end of the day.
How do you feel about your situation here with this team? You got another year to go after this year.
Yeah, I got another year. So I mean, it's easy for me to say it's not a big deal, but next year it could be me in the same situation. But for right now, I do got one more year. But I'm here. I'm all in. I'm ready to work with my guys.
Is there any talk of you and your rep working on an extension?
No, I'm focused on just playing right now.
In light of everything that's going on, is this something though that's creeped into your mind about what your situation may be next year?
I can't say I haven't, but I'm so focused and locked in. It's I'm there with those guys too. I understand the situation. I know it can be me one day, and yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of playing both sides. I'm here for my team, but I'm also understanding the situation that I could be in.
All right. Well, I mean, Nick Chubb always soft-spoken and thoughtful, and honestly telling it like it is, because the reality is that there is very little that the running backs can do right now. They can withhold their labor. But the problem right now is that this is the reason that they are undercut from withholding their labor is the exact reason they're not getting paid. And that is there are fresh guys coming out of college who are not worried about their second contract. They're worried about staying in the NFL. Running backs. And they're going to just fill those positions. So, I mean, like the Giants, for example, drafted Eric Gray, running back out of Oklahoma, in the 5th round this year. Do you think he's going to hold out? You think he's going to hold out just out of solidarity with running backs as a rookie? He's not doing that. He wants to get a roster spot. And if Saquon isn't there, who's going to get those carries? It's going to be Eric Gray or James Robinson, who they just signed, who's also fighting for his life in the league.
But also James Robinson, who notably undrafted guy who also has had a 1,000-yard rushing season before, and this is even that example of what James Robinson did in Jacksonville one year is emblematic of the conundrum and the tension and the impasse that guys like Nick Chubb are in. Is that what he said in that clip is he's saying that their production can be used against him, and it goes in a number of ways. Nick Chubb, as one of the more elite level running backs, one of the best, if not the best running back in the league, his production is used against him to be like, oh, how much tread does he have on his tires? Mm-hmm. Or a guy like James Robinson, who's an undrafted guy. Well, listen, that production can be used against them as well. This is an undrafted guy. He had a 1,000-yard rushing season. Why would we shell out top dollar for a running back? Why would we use a high-level draft pick on a running back when James Robinson himself, or a guy we could find our own James Robinson, we could find our own diamond in the rough with an undrafted free agent fresh out of college who will command less money and less years on their contract. It is a really dastardly circumstance that running backs find themselves in, unfortunately, and it's a really cruel situation they find themselves in, because there's really, the teams are getting less and less incentivized to do this, to actually provide significant value from their end to running backs, and running backs don't have a whole lot of outlets to contest this. It's really they couldn't be in a less optimal position to bargain than they are right now.
Well, one, because they literally cannot bargain because of the tag rules. If you were tagged like Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs and didn't sign it, Tony Pollard signed his smartly for him. I mean, honestly, Saquon made a mistake. I mean, Saquon made a big mistake turning down that offer that was given to him in the middle of the season, where the Giants wanted to extend Saquon and tag Daniel Jones. That was the plan, not to extend Daniel Jones. Saquon turned it down, and it was around $13 million per year, similar to that. He wanted up to 16, and this is how things ended up for him. I mean, Saquon, at least right now, he's third currently in the NFL in terms of running back career earnings, because he was taken second overall. So for him, it's a little bit of a different situation. But I'm worried for Josh Jacobs. Like, I've seen the way that the Patriots treat running backs as completely disposable. I mean, like, I was just thinking,
take your pick.
Remember LeGarrette Blount?
Yeah.
Like, that was 27. That was the Super Bowl that they won against the Rams. I think he was the big like. Do you even remember LeGarrette Blount?
Oh yeah. I mean, I sure do.
We do, but right, like
LeGarrette Blount, James White, Dion Lewis.
I mean, this is the structure of
Rex
the way
Burkhead.
This is the way the Raiders are going to be run, right? They're trying to be Patriots of Las Vegas,
absolutely.
Like
especially this current team's makeup.
If they think this Jacobs is going to be a distraction, they're going to rip up that franchise tag, and he's not going to be able to sign it. The problem is
Dalvin Cook also. What's going to happen with Dalvin Cook?
He's a free agent still.
Right. Eckler, there was no market for Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler had the most touchdowns in the entire league last year. And as you said, to your point with Josh Jacobs, 2,000 all-purpose yards from Josh Jacobs. No market for them. Dalvin Cook was, if not basically for Justin Jefferson, I'd probably say the other, and Kirk Cousins, the best offensive player on that entire Vikings offense. No, he's a free agent, then no one signed him.
Yeah, it really is a horrific situation for running backs, and like, it's good that the stars are speaking out. The problem is that the guys that aren't stars that will eventually get to that point are not incentivized at all to speak out because they're worried about staying on the roster. But once they get to the point where they can get a second contract, the problem is the timeline here. Let's be clear. Once they get to the point where they can get a second contract, then that's used against them, as Nick Chubb says. So here's a variety of different solutions that need to happen to correct this. And the NFL should do this proactively before they wake up in 5-10 years and there are no running backs left because all the best athletes are going to play different positions and there's no one who's going to be like an explosive runner in the backfield. Stars that drive fantasy football, that drive revenue. But hold on, let me just finish this. These are a few options that they can do. One, they can get rid of this stupid tag negotiation cutoff, because Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley literally can't do anything except sign their franchise tag and play for the team, because there's a negotiation window that cuts off when that franchise tag gets put in place. So they either play on a 1-year deal or nothing, okay? That's not something that should be in place for running backs. 2, they should tweak the CBA so that running backs only maybe when they come out of college have 2-year contracts. Then they can't get tagged or something, and they go to the free market, and they're able to get a second contract in their prime years where they're not making $700,000 or whatever if they're a later round pick. That's one of them. The other, I think, could be done by the league. A fantasy football fund. I keep bringing us back to this because there's a whole crew, millions of people that would not tune into the NFL on Sunday if it were not for their fantasy football team. Millions of people. That could help solve the exploitation of these running backs who are driven into the ground for their production and then refused a second contract because of their production. A fantasy fund for touchdowns, for touches, for whatever, for guys that are bringing eyeballs to the screen, and so that they can get paid, even though what's driving all this is analytics. That's all this is. You pay the guys that are surplus. I don't know the analytics term, but the guys that are going to elevate your team in terms of value. Those positions are quarterback for sure, wide receiver, corner, and pass rusher, I think, are the 4 premium. Oh, maybe not even receiver. It's left tackle, it might be. But those are the positions that right now the equations, the analytics community has come to a determination that those provide the most value for your team. And running back is like by far at the bottom of the list. Safety too. I mean, and linebacker. Like those are seen as the most interchangeable parts. And for running backs in particular, it's most egregious because of how the NFL has been so obsessive about offensive production, making the league more tilted towards the offense to get those numbers juiced up. But the problem is that they're doing it more towards the passing game, whether it's through the penalty for pass interference being like from the point of the foul or from the point of where the catch would be, whether it be 15 yards for roughing the passer, protecting the quarterback. They're so fixated on the explosive passing game being the element of the game that they're going to look back in 10 years and be like, we lost something in the NFL. And it's because they weren't proactive about protecting players like these running backs. Go ahead, Bradley. Sorry.
No, that's good. And to your point about like the fantasy football stuff too is like we've both said this on the show before, but like anecdotally, like when we do our like fantasy football, like either snake or auction drafts or whatever, the top 10 guys on ESPN's draft list or Yahoo Sports, whatever you're using for like fantasy value are running backs, and especially now, given that the league has been so pass heavy and there's been so much of a shift towards the optimal play of not only quarterback, but obviously quarterback play with the pass, but also mobile quarterbacks with like RPOs and stuff. It's led to almost a further correction that because so many defenses are getting wise to that type of thing, establishing a more robust run game is almost more at a premium than it has been in years past.
True.
So like the Chiefs and the Bengals both for their runs in the AFC needed to establish a more active run game so as to not have Mahomes and Burrows either RPO or kind of empty sets, whatever was like more maximal to Burrow and Mahomes, because obviously Burrow and Mahomes have different skill sets, but they really did emphasize making more run plays for guys like Jerick McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco, and then in the Bengals case, Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine. Only one of those guys would even be eligible or really be inclined to get a big money contract. Perine signed with the Broncos, but not for a whole lot. Pacheco's a 7th round rookie out of Rutgers.
Yeah.
And so with all that being said, these guys are actually now probably more likely more valuable in terms of how they can diversify an offense, but they are not going to see any sort of financial upgrade with that diversification happening. It's just not going to happen. And so like,
yeah,
it's tough that we're seeing this where, as you've been saying, there's still this utility and there's still a necessity for these guys to be on teams, but you do have to wonder how much it's worth it for them if, one, there's not going to be, for a lot of potentially legitimate reasons, there's not going to be a lot of labor solidarity around this push or around this fight. And
it's because they don't have their own bargaining unit running backs, which they should within the NFLPA.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
And with guys even within their own sector, within running backs, as you said, with people in different circumstances, there might not even be in solidarity within the position group.
And that's
for
all
also legitimate reasons.
Because of the structure of the CBA.
Right,
it could change.
Right.
But like that's the rules with which I mean, that's part of what the NFL wanted to negotiate, divide and conquer within the bargaining unit. That's a part of what like management does. Bradley, guess which teams, though, were the top 5 rushing teams last year in 2022? Don't look it up. Yardage.
Okay.
Because I want to just make
Eagles?
a point. Eagles is number 5.
Eagles.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No. I'm Eagles, and I'm trying to think. Eagles.
I'll give you
Niners. 49ers.
No.
Oh no, 49ers. Okay.
They were 7.
Oh, interesting. Eagles, 40. I would have thought 49ers. Titans, maybe?
Nope.
Oh, no.
See, this is what the point I'm trying to make. Think of running quarterbacks.
Yeah. So
right?
Chiefs?
No.
Oh,
the Bears were the number 1 rushing team.
Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, they were the worst
Fields,
team in football.
Right.
But that's the
point
point
that does
there.
make sense, yeah. Justin
Then the
Fields.
Ravens, even though Lamar was injured, and yet still, right? The Falcons then, all right? I mean, they're a little of an outlier because their quarterback situation was bizarre.
But Cordero Patterson, Tyler Algier, yeah.
But
makes
then the
sense.
Giants, and then the Eagles. So
interesting.
It's running quarterback situation. The running quarterbacks are taking carries also from the running backs.
Absolutely.
Because the money is going towards the quarterback position as well.
Of course.
And I think that's a part of the dynamic too. The league is freaking fixated on quarterbacks, obsessed with quarterbacks, and everything is structured now to the energy is going to the quarterback, to the quarterback, to the quarterback, and eventually this is not going to be sustainable. Because I honestly, I feel like a broken record sometimes because I get sick of talking about quarterbacks all the time. But that's what the league wants, apparently. I mean, and I don't know how they square that with fantasy football, which is another big driver for them.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of they are bumping up against, I think, some really convoluted problems in the marketplace of the NFL that are going to come to a head at a certain point. And this running back situation is one of the first ones. And indicators. It's a canary in the coal mine for these conflicting factors in a league that's exploding with money right now.
And lest we forget, this is we've been talking about a lot of this in the context of labor and the finances of the league and X's and O's and some trends within the business side as well as the labor side and the gameplay side, but also let's also just consider the health side for these guys. This is a position that we are seeing, as we've been discussing, being systematically undervalued and kind of in a coordinated way, and it just so happens to also be one of the positions where the careers of these guys are some of the shortest among position players in the NFL. And they probably, I would say, maybe if not the most dangerous position to play in the league.
Mm-hmm.
They are some of the most unprotected guys in the league when they get out of their stance and get handed the ball off, and they are very much more likely with how they play in the way that they are susceptible to being tackled, to have higher incidences of injury and also brain injury after their career is over.
Yep.
So it's a lot of risk for very little reward, and it seems with also what seems to be trending to be the market standard to give them less reward for their risk.
Yeah, exactly. It really is a difficult situation, but if I were giving advice to especially the Josh Jacobs, the Giants aren't going to rescind the tag for Saquon. I mean, John Mara is not going to allow that to happen.
I don't think so.
Saquon's Mr. Giant, but Josh Jacobs was not drafted by this regime. I worry about him. I'm serious. This is going to be. They could just say we're rescinding the tag and we'll sign Dalvin Cook for $5 million.
Right. But
dude, take care of yourself. I mean,
I think that's the hard balance to strike. Is you don't want to necessarily concede, but also you don't want to end up with no money at all.
And then do that, and then organize a more robust labor action next time, because right now you just have the stars on board, and that's not going to be enough. It's got
to be everybody.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I think it's a good step in the right direction to have this meeting, to have people talk about this stuff out in the open. But this is just the start if we really want to see any sort of actual movement on this.
Yeah. Niall from Trinidad, I literally got into NFL football because of fantasy football in my office league. I paid attention, began understanding the game, eventually winning the league, starting my own league, and played in the public leagues and winning. I mean, Niall, exactly. That's the point. There's so many people.
It's a draw for people who might not care about football otherwise.
Exactly.
And I want to see my running back score a touchdown. There's there are no royalties for that.
No.
There's no one. You don't get Nick Chubb doesn't get a check for all the people that select him to be on their fantasy football team with their first or second.
But you know what he gets? He gets a bunch of people in his mention saying, "You lost me.
Yeah, you lost me the game.
Week, fuck you." And the problem.
Oh, you got injured. Shit.
Yeah. So
I have to find another quarterback on the waiver wire.
So these guys exactly. These guys should be. I mean, there's emotional labor involved in that. I know these guys are considered robots to the rest of the league, but I consider some of that to be like hazard pay for being the part of fantasy football.
And also, this is the counterpoint to a lot of people are like, why should we be concerned about these guys who are all making millions of dollars? The point is they're not all making millions of dollars. Patrick Mahomes and Olamide Zaccheaus, I mean, he's a wide receiver, but I'm saying
amazing.
But like Falcons receiver or like I don't know, Matt Breida. They're not all making the same amount of money.
Yeah, and
they are struggling to make. This is a very difficult thing to maintain as your actual professional career. It's temporary, and they're not all making the same amount of money as all the superstars in the league are.
And if they were making $1 million for the rest of their lives, that would be a different story. But they're making, say,
the money doesn't continue.
$800,000 a year for 4 years, and that's like the culmination of their professional life. They're supposed to make money that will then set them up for life. Just understand that this is a different labor dynamic than a standard one. Don't come after the players.
Yeah.
After the owners.
Absolutely.
All right, I am turning off the voicemail. We have calls that we will take at some point today. The number is 646-257-3920, 646-257-3920. Let's briefly touch on this coach here on the Jaguars, Bradley, if you don't mind pulling up that article.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So kind of a nice news story, honestly nice because it didn't receive much attention. So you know that hopefully this kind of thing is going to begin to be normalized. But according to Outsports, it appears that the first... that there has been an NFL coach who came out and decided that he was going to be public about the fact that he is gay. And he is, according to at least Outsports' reporting here, the first NFL first NFL coach to come out as gay when they're in the league here. This is the Jaguars strength coach, Kevin Maxson. Comes out as the first in major U.S. Men's pro sports. We'll read a little bit about this because I think it's pretty nice. I mean, it's like, and it's also, this isn't in, a Los Angeles Rams Charger or a New York Jets, not Charger, a Los Angeles Rams coach. Man, my brain's falling apart. Or a New York Giants one. I mean, this is in Jacksonville. You're a hop, skip, and a jump away from like SEC territory there, baby. So, and Ron DeSantis is your governor. Kevin Maxson, an associate strength coach with the NFL's Jacksonville Jaguars, is coming out publicly in hopes of living his life openly, without fear, and to inspire others to do so as well. I don't want to feel like I have to think about it anymore, Maxson told Outsports in an exclusive interview. I don't want to feel like I have to lie about who I am seeing or why I'm living with someone else. I want to be vocal in support of people living how they want to live, but also want to just live and not feel fear about how people will react. Maxson is believed to be the first ever publicly out male coach in major American men's pro sports in general, not just the NFL. He told Outsports that his journey has been a long one, but in the last year, his personal network has risen up around him to show support for him coming out. It wasn't until recently, and with the immense love and support of my family, my friends, colleagues, and peers, and the courage and sacrifice from my partner, that I realized I have the right and responsibility to love and be loved. And that maybe sharing this will hopefully give someone else the strength to accept their own life and take control of their own story. Maxon's partner is his boyfriend, Nick. The two have been dating for over 2 years. Very lovely photo of the two of them. Before joining the Jaguars, Maxson was a strength coach with the football teams at Baylor and Vanderbilt. He also had internships as a strength coach at the University of Iowa and Army. With the Jaguars, he works with the offensive and defensive linemen on designing their full workout plan. That entails planning exercise, blah, 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 blah. Right, so we know what strength coaches do. I mean, yeah, this part's actually interesting here, too. He told Outsports that he was questioning his sexuality even in college, where he was also captain of the team for 3 seasons. This is instructive here because there are 100% players in the NFL right now who are gay, but maybe aren't out or haven't decided that they're going to be public about being out. And so this is why it matters. I mean, maybe there's someone on the Jaguars, right? And so the fact that there's a coach who is saying this is a big deal. But he played college football there, standout linebacker at Western Connecticut State University, a D3 school. Now in the NFL, he said he is hopeful about the reaction Jaguars players will have to his truth. He's confident his work ethic, personality, and commitment to the team's success will win over any doubters. All right, I'm pretty sure we got the gist there. So good job to honestly, to Kevin Maxson for coming out and doing so publicly. I just think it's cool. And I remember when Michael Sam was drafted and the controversy surrounding that, which is just insanity. But I mean, this is a very the masculinity in the NFL is just like so pungent that any puncturing of that bubble is it's like cataclysmic to these guys who are in many ways performing masculinity in such a aggressive manner that it's like an alien species for some of these guys, and for other guys it might stir something in them that they don't like, and then for other guys they're going to be accepting. But it's a part of just like that gradual incorporation of different kinds of backgrounds and perspectives into these traditional masculine spaces that is only a good thing.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely been even obviously there being a long way to go towards more broader acceptance of LGBTQ plus people in sports. We are also obviously know this is representation isn't the only thing, because a lot of this also, even with representation, leads to a lot of culture warriors and bigots and race and homophobes and things like that coming out even more strongly. And this is not to discourage. It's more to say that with it's the bravery that comes with it is that people do sometimes react to more awareness or more representation of these folks in these leagues with more opprobrium against them, like with trans athletes, like with queer athletes, like we saw with Michael Sam. It was incredibly brave of Michael Sam to come out. He was the SEC Player of the Year on defense when he came out, and when he was drafted into the league in the 3rd round, and literally basically had a very, very short career for what I do not think is any sort of coincidence because of his sexual orientation and coaches and front offices queasiness about having a gay player around there, supposedly all straight players.
He was a 7th.
Oh, excuse me, sorry. I think maybe he was mocked to be a 3rd round pick as a talent, but then he obviously
that slide.
There was a slide probably
yeah.
due to his coming out,
yes.
Which I just don't see any of that as coincidence. I think, there were players like John Amici, an NBA player who wrote a book when he came out, who said he would never have felt comfortable at all coming out while in NBA locker rooms. So he did when his career was very much over. Jason Collins, who came out was at the end of his career when he chose to do so, when he was still playing for the Nets. And in this piece, Maxson says that he contacted Carl Nassib, who's still a player on the Raiders, who was one of the first players since then, I think, to come out as gay. And so I believe there has been some movement to be a little bit more accepting of this, and I think this can only assist this. But it's so important to realize that it's not just about the coming out leads to there being more like safety and comfort for these individuals. They need to be supported and nurtured after doing this thing, which is very scary.
Yeah, Nassib is a free agent.
Oh,
now.
Excuse me, he was on the Raiders at some point. But I guess he's not with the team at this point.
He signed with the Bucks, and it was like for a veteran minimum, so he's likely to retire semi soon. But look, he's 30, right. And he had a pretty good NFL career.
Right,
I mean,
totally.
He started for the Raiders. For a while.
Yeah. And
his brother was a quarterback at Syracuse.
Yes, just Ryan Nassib.
Giants backup for a while.
And so all that is to say is, it's scary for people to come out when they're coming out to like their parents or their friends or like other family members and what they might think. It must be absolutely terrifying to see the reaction that some people have gotten to coming out and thinking, that's me if I do become public about these things. Should I even consider doing that? So for Maxson to do this, it's really, really commendable. I hope that he can be a solve and a boon to some, not only maybe just players not even just players, not even necessarily speculating that there are players who are not out or who might ultimately decide to come out or something like that. Even players who might have relatives who are gay and struggling. Like I remember when Reggie Bullock talked about Reggie Bullock, the NBA player, former Knick, talked about his trans sibling and how that I think opened so many doors for people who maybe also had a trans sibling or a trans relative or a trans friend. Like these mainstreaming of these things, or at least these spotlighting of these things, no matter how tangential they might be, are genuinely helpful for people who might be scared to come out or scared of the reaction. Bravery can beget bravery. So I think it's overall a very good thing. And in a time where it's really difficult for queer people in this country to still want to be themselves in spite of it all, I think is very, very heartwarming and very gratifying. So I hope there's more of this.
100%. All right, we're going to take a call. Calling from a 310 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Who is this?
Oh, wow. Okay, so my name is Michael. I'm from Los Angeles, big fan of the show. And I wanted to talk kind of about two things. First of all, the running back situation. I think there's a really kind of negative consequence in that by making this position so like underpaid in comparison to what they provide, you're also kind of killing the position at like every level, because the best athletes right now, I'd say, like, are kind of running backs along with like other positions. But now the same kids that are trained to become NFL running backs and are going to college, they're going to say, all right, let me be wide receiver, let me play corner.
Yeah.
So we're kind of killing this position at every
It's a brain
level.
drain, or a body drain in this way.
It's a brain drain in the sports sense when we're talking about position. Another thing, have you heard about the UFC debacle with Francis Ngannou?
I have a little
I've heard.
bit, yes.
I understood that there was some sort of or at least some issue with Ngannou and UFC, but I don't know the particulars. If you could, I would love to hear more if you want to share.
Okay, so I'm a major. First of all, I'm a major fan of the UFC. I actually wrestled in high school, and I actually got to meet one of the All-Americans that trained with some of the fighters. So this is actually kind of personal for me. So the thing is that Francis Ngannou was at one point the heavyweight champion in the UFC, but the way the revenue split in the UFC is that in the NFL and NBA, we roughly have like 50-50, right? Or is it more accurately? I think it's like more accurately like 51-49 in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the UFC, it's realistically what it's projected to be is 20% to the fighters and 80% to the UFC. However, when you actually adjust for the healthcare, when you adjust for every aspect of what is considered under fighter pay, it's more like 13% to 86%.
Incredibly exploitative. I mean, is this the I'm might be conflating the UFC with like professional wrestling contracts, but essentially are they also treated as these independent contractors?
Yeah, so WWE also does not have a union.
And the evil of that whole like status is that they pretty much are expected to handle the workload of an employee without the actual benefits of employment, because they're technically contractors. That means let's say you're paying around rookie contract. The first 4 fights, I'd say, is around 10K. So 10 to show up to the fight, make weight, and 10 to win. And the thing is, they don't pay for your training camp. If you're fighting other world-class opponents, you have to have preparation. So, like the UFC is the NFL of MMA.
Yeah.
Right.
And the reason that they get around having no union or treating them as independent contractors is because they pretend, there's other options out there. But, as you say, they are a de facto monopoly, even if they pretend that that's not the case, which is why there should be some legal action to say, hey, if you want to engage in this, you have to seek an antitrust exemption, and and that means that you're workers need to be, there needs to be a union in the way that the NBA, the NFL, et cetera, are mandated to have unions based on their antitrust exemption.
And then another.
Although maybe
thing
the NBA
is
voluntarily did it. I just want to, but the NHL is a better example. Sorry, continue.
Yes. And another thing is that the camps only get more expensive. Lightweight champion Islam Makhachev, prodigious grappler, he trains in Russia. His camp spent $1 million for his title bout with Charles Oliveira. So these camps don't have to just be $4,000. When you're at the top contender levels, you're spending hundreds of thousands, and that can drain your account. Then you have to take into account taxes, and this is a really, I guess, the scary part. A lot of these guys are already coming from combat backgrounds. So I only got to compete at the high school level. I didn't actually go into MMA right after wrestling, but I've already had my knee operated on. I've had a bunch of therapies for my wrist. I just did a major back surgery, and I'm only 23. I know that just those first 10 years of wrestling I did, I'm gonna be doing pretty much. I'm gonna have trouble walking by 50. So you take that, and then you add elite college experience at wrestling. Then you add all of the MMA damage, and you're you're not even set up for retirement for 90% of the time. It's a really cool system. So it's one labor professor looked at a UFC contract. It was Eddie Alvarez, and he said it bordered on slavery. That's how bad these contracts are.
Yeah, no surprise. No surprise there, as horrifying as it is to behold, given who's pulling the levers of power in the UFC. That being Dana White and who he associates himself with, and how for how much money he makes, how little he cares about his workforce.
Yeah, and another way they kind of undercut pay is that because it's a global organization, there's this idea that rather than paying for U.S. centered fighters, they can always just go to countries with more devalued currencies like Brazil. They're currently expanding into Africa to they're going to countries that are undergoing development, and then they're taking fighters from there. So then the low pay here is relatively high for them, but it's not adjusted for each currency. So if you're living in a high in a place with a very high cost of living, you're still sleeping in someone else's house at the UFC level.
Yep.
When you're literally the 1% of the 1% of MMA fighters. It's really ridiculous.
I really appreciate your call. And, I want to do more on that kind of stuff. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Michael.
Thank you. No problem.
Let's see. Calling from a 937 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Oh, they hung up. They hung up. All right, let's do this. We have other people on the line. I appreciate you hanging on, but I wanted to do this really quickly. Looking at some of these throwback uniforms. Ready? So, some throwback uniforms have been released, and, this is what NFL franchises do these days to rake in some extra money. Look, I'm an old fogey. For the most part, I don't love tweaking classic uniforms, except if they do it in a way that is I don't know, commensurate with the past construction of the uniforms. But we'll get into this. I wanted to check out some of these for you guys, and we can rank them as we go. The Browns released this. I mean, to me, let's zoom in if we could on just the text. Speaking of the UFC, we have a big, that's a boxing match, but massive ad there on usatoday.com. So the USA Today ranked the Browns the worst of the throwback uniforms that have been released so far. I wouldn't go that far. We'll just go through them and then will retroactively rank them. Let's just keep scrolling. It's just the all white, as they say. It does feel reminiscent of what the Bengals did last year. The Vikings, I mean, these are like real classics. You have Randall Cunningham wearing those jerseys. Randy Moss. I mean, those are the ultimate. Chris Carter, Chris Carter in those purple people eater uniforms were pretty dope. Let's keep going. Those I like better than the. Okay, so the Jets are a huge upgrade, and these should be their uniforms for the rest of time. Do you not agree? I mean, enough. I hate the Jets redesign was atrocious.
So I was okay mostly with the green uniforms, but I fucking despise. I hate this in every jersey redesign. I've always hated black jersey redesigns for teams that have nothing to do with the color black.
Yeah.
I hated the black Knicks jerseys. I hate the black LA Clippers jerseys. I hated the Jets black Jets jerseys. So like this is definitely an upgrade. I like the white and the green stripes, but anything for me is better than the black Jets jerseys that they were trotting out. I really could not stand those.
They kind of look a little bit too much like the Eagles away jerseys from the 90s, like the green.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I don't know. I mean, I still like those Jets ones. They're definitely an improvement, and I don't know. I mean, sometimes I feel like teams that don't have winning traditions do these rebrands all the time. No offense to your Jets, and that it creates the appearance of organizational instability. But let's keep going. Not that the Jets need to create that impression. The New England Patriots. I mean, we saw these though before. They've played with these. Yes. So this is nothing new. I don't even want to include them in the ranking because I've seen these before. But here we go. They're fine. All right, so the creamsicles are coming back for the Bucks. Now, this is also a bit of, I love these. I do love these. But the mixed feeling is that when the Bucks first came into the league, they were wearing this, and they were a national embarrassment during that time. So the Bucks rebrand did well for them. So going back to the creamsicles, I don't know what juju that creates, especially when they're in the post-Brady era and they seem completely listless. But I like these just because of the kitsch element, but let's keep scrolling. The Bucks one, pretty good. The Titans one, all right. We don't have the full image of, like, they did a photo shoot and everything with Tannehill in them, but they're basically going back to the Oilers. And I love this. I wish that they would just do this in general and slap the Titans logo on it, but those might be my favorite so far. Because, yeah, look at that. Scroll up for just a sec. I mean, that's what it's gonna look like. That's gonna be dope. I mean, that's DeAndre Hopkins in an Oilers jersey. That's what we like to see. And then, unfortunately, I have to give it to the Eagles. The Eagles should go back to that full time. The Kelly Green. The Kelly Green. Man, that puts fear in my heart. Those Kelly Green jerseys for the Eagles when they'd come to town in those, or when the Giants would have to go there. And then USA Today ranks the Seattle Seahawks throwbacks at number 1. Again, the ones where they return to a more losing tradition in their jerseys, I don't know if I'm that into that either. But now I think everybody's seen it. Bradley, what are your thoughts? Which ones are your favorites?
I freaking love I think by a mile, the creamsicles are my favorite.
That's because you love kitsch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the creamsicles. I think they're so funny.
You like the fun.
Yeah.
We've had conversations like this. I don't remember the specifics, but you always err.
I like the
campiness.
I like the big Raptors jerseys with the pinstripes. I like the green and orange Spurs logos. I like the big Warriors jerseys.
Yes.
The big blue horse Pistons jerseys. I love all of the absolute gaudy, almost borderline grotesque jerseys because like they don't really make them like they used to. So I love the creamsicles. I can't wait to see those out there. I think the Seahawks is nice, but I don't think it's that revelatory, frankly. I think it's a nice color. I think the Kelly green is great. I like the Kelly green a lot.
Yeah.
And there was one more that I thought. I also thought I think the Vikings are also the Purple People Eater ones are also pretty classic.
Those are classic.
But creamsicle is for me. That's my fave.
I mean, in terms of just straight up improvements, the Jets are Jets win most improved. Because the Jets jerseys, I hate the home ones too. To be honest with you, I hate the logo redesign. I hate the stupid font.
They sort
hate
of
the black ones.
They both sides of that redesign kind of almost, I would say, like it's almost felt like a sanitization or like a sterilization of the Jets colors.
Yes.
It looked a little bit too like chemical, almost like not like there didn't seem to be any soul in the design of those jerseys.
No.
I agree. I also don't even like the font where how New York is stitched on. So like,
I agree.
Yeah, so like it's not even like the old Jets font or the old Jets jerseys. So like I very much prefer these to what they had for the last few years.
So I mean, we'll start really from the bottom. I mean, I would say for me, at least, the ones that I like least, we'll put the Patriots at the bottom because this isn't even a redesign. They've done the red throwbacks before, so I'm putting them at the bottom. Then I'm gonna put the Browns at the bottom. It just feels like they're doing what the Bengals did with the white Bengal jerseys last year.
Which has like happened already.
Yeah, it's happened. Then I'm working up. Then I'm gonna put the creamsicles. I'm sorry, it's just the Bucks never won in those, and I don't know why they're bringing them back. If not just for like
who
the
cares?
Fun. Yeah, and then I'm gonna put the Seahawks because I don't think it's that revelatory as you say. I'm getting closer and closer to ranking the Eagles one. All right, then I'm gonna do. Then the Vikings because it's not that. No. Then the Jets because they're okay, but they still don't have the old logo back. Then the Vikings, and then it comes down to the Titans versus.
Oh, that's the only one I forgot to
Eagles.
mention. I love the Oilers throwbacks. Those are going to be great.
I think I'm going to do the Eagles too, and then the Oilers throwbacks. Even though it's a little silly because of the fact that they are not the Oilers anymore. That it doesn't make a ton of sense for them to have the Oilers logo on
because
it.
Also it's like there is also a Houston team that exists,
but but
not the same lineage, obviously, of how the teams travel. Just more the fact that the Texans already exist.
It's just I think Warren Moon in that uniform, it has such a history to it, and
100%.
I like the light blue and the red much more than the really muted colors the Titans have now. They're just not the red and the blue. It doesn't stand out. It's kind of generic looking. So in terms of color scheme and most improvement, all blending that together, I got to give it to the Oilers. But I am such a sucker for those Kelly green Philadelphia Eagles jerseys.
They're so nice.
They're so smooth and good.
And like that's a green, like that, like for like that's the way if you're a team that has a green, like green is a very like, especially with like team colors, is usually pretty like it can be pretty shocking or pretty like stand out, and I think that's the way to do it. Whereas like I just think the way the Jets utilize green the last few years has just not been aesthetically pleasing to me.
I agree with you. So I wish that the Giants would go to they wore their old school Giants helmet last year with the red outlined letters on the blue.
Yes, which I love that.
I love that. I mean, I wish
great.
that they would go back to the LT jerseys. The when they did the rebrand. I mean, when the Giants won the Super Bowl, thank God they were wearing in my lifetime those 2 times. Thank God they were wearing the away jerseys because the home jerseys with the gray pants that they were wearing during the Eli Manning era were not attractive.
No, the gray is.
They oversimplified and took way too much red out of the design. But I think the Giants, they should go back to the Giants on the helmet, not the NY stupid logo, and back to like old school big blue red outlines on the letters.
I agree. I like that too.
I think they worry it's too close to the Bills, but hey, the Giants did it first. Sorry. So you guys can adjust.
But also, I mean, I don't think sameness or like similarities always stop teams from like kind of doing their throw. You know, I think there have been jerseys or color schemes that have been pretty similar, and it's not been like a huge issue.
I agree. Yeah. J-Man J said, to be honest, I was rooting for Vietnam guys. Anyway, Ohtani being traded is very interesting. The Angels need to trade him and Trout. San Diego, the Dodgers, and San Francisco are the places he would sign if we assume he wants to stay on the West Coast, which is a thing apparently. So they don't have the advantage in the trade market potentially. Don't look now, Bradley. My man Manoah is on the comeback trail.
Oh, thank God. He had a terrible stint in the minor leagues after he got called down. He gave up like 11 runs in 2 different starts, but happy to hear that. I love Alek Manoah, who Blue Jays pitcher. If I had to predict, I think Shohei will ultimately be traded to the Padres because I think the
do they have the purse strings to do that now that they also like did that mega contract for Soto? Can they do that?
I think it's a similar thing with the Dodgers and the Padres though, in the sense that I think both owners are very much willing to spend literally as much money as humanly possible to get him on the team.
Yeah.
So I think it's possible, but I think that would be the case because I also think for some reason the Angels seemingly don't want to send him to the Dodgers, even though they're not even in the same league. But I think, but neither the Padres. But I think they'd rather do business with the Padres potentially, from what I'm hearing. But I think all of this could be a smokescreen. They might just do nothing. It might actually, the Angels have actually been winning a little bit more than they were before, which I think was what was going to lead them to do the teardown. And now maybe they're like, maybe we won't do the teardown.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I hope they
but
do.
But Shohei, all that is to say is I just think those two guys, it's so odd to have literally the 2 best players in the sport be on a team. Well, actually, it's maybe not that odd given the NHL, but to have 2 players on one team that suck, that the team is not good.
Antifa Lockhart says, so if a team hasn't won the Super Bowl, they can't have throwbacks? Come on, man. That's not what I said, Antifa Lockhart. I said that I don't love when teams who were winning later on in their the Seahawks didn't win in those old school jerseys. I mean, they did go to a Super Bowl in those, and those are pretty good. Like, maybe I'm underrating those Seahawks ones, but
and excuse me, the Jets have won a Super Bowl.
The Jets have won a Super Bowl.
If you'll recall.
1969.
Yeah,
right?
54 years ago. No problem.
Yeah.
Absolutely no problem.
NBD.
I was around.
In spirit.
I was there.
I mean, that's how the Rangers, they have won a Stanley Cup in my lifetime. I was a month or 2 old,
right,
but yeah. The 93-94 season. Wu-Tang Forever Throwback Hawks uniforms are straight fire. Gonna cop one of those. Cop one for the man B-Wags.
Nice.
Yeah. No, my point was just that I don't love when teams that were more successful throw back to a time like the creamsicle ones were mostly a dog shit time for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a new franchise in the NFL. And then they won 2 Super Bowls, one under Gruden and one with Brady, and they were not wearing those. So I don't know why you would throw it back to that. You might want to just like throw it back to a different iteration of the Bucs jerseys. Not the ones with the digital damn clock numbers, though. Worst jersey in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, but that's
digital clock numbers.
Yeah, that's why you go to the creamsicles though, because they're nice.
I get it. It's not egregious. I'm just, this is
it's just for the aesthetics.
It's just I understand. It's just for the aesthetics.
There's no
and by aesthetics
tangible
you
value.
mean like the equivalent of a neon sign in a door. That's the aesthetic that you're into.
Absolutely.
I'm very Michael Scott at dinner party.
I love it. I think I can't wait. I can't wait to see. I wonder what the most garish color combination will be when the Bucs use the creamsicle jerseys. Like who they could be playing to make like the most like aesthetically displeasing combo.
Yeah.
Like maybe the Kelly Green Eagles and then the creamsicle Bucks.
Oh, that's St. Patrick's Day, baby. And those are the worst 2 color combinations.
St. Patrick's Day is green and then the aftermath being like the creamsicle puke sort of.
No, that's the secondary color you're supposed to wear on St. Patrick's Day.
Oh yeah,
orange.
I guess orange, right? Because the flag, I guess, right?
Yes.
Irish flag, yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, love my Irish brethren. Those 2 colors though together are not the most attractive.
Not the most
on different sides of the color wheel.
Yeah, maybe by themselves.
Yeah, maybe. Right. 100%. Certified Packers hater wanted to say I'm really frustrated with the discourse among NFL fans about the Vikings running back, or wide receiver, I think you mean, Jordan Addison, who went 140 miles an hour in the 55 zone. That came out today. He's claiming that it was a dog emergency. Seeing a lot of people take this as a fact and a good reason for going nearly over 100 miles an hour over. Yeah, I mean, there's I don't understand sometimes how like NFL players don't hear other stories about guys in their field and think I shouldn't do that. I mean, Henry Ruggs played your same position, is now going to prison for a long time for killing someone
in a car accident.
In a car accident by speeding. But these are young guys. Like, that's the thing that you have to realize is
it's a lot of like money and fame and visibility and exposure.
When I started working at TY2 when I was 22 years old, I was still being reckless and stupid with my friends, even though I'm like ostensibly a professional on TV, until maybe I'm 25 years old. Like, I was being an idiot. I mean, even good professionally, but on the weekends I'm like, let's go crazy.
Yeah, with also like no disrespect to you, but obviously far less disposable income.
Totally. I mean, yes, far less
than a first round pick wide receiver.
Exactly, and so they're going.
Not to excuse it. It's just like I think this is like there is a reason why some of these guys do make really bad decisions. John Morant, even in the other league, is another example. Like
and even I mean, when I was a teenager, we did dumb stuff in our car, speeding. We used to try to get air going over hills in certain areas in New Jersey, going way too fast. I mean, I didn't drive, but I was with guys I was trying to impress.
We used to go to state parks after dark when they would close and just sit there.
Yes.
In pitch black until a state trooper was like, "Get the fuck out of here!"
Right.
Well, you don't even live here.
So some of these guys, they're young, their brains are not fully developed. They don't. I mean, for everybody, you're not fully developed until you're 25 plus, and for I think. Some people say for men it takes longer. I don't know how good that science is, but yeah, it's give them some grace. It's super dangerous and not excusable, but they're also just.
And hopefully he can reflect on and see how lucky he is that there was no he just got a speeding ticket for his trouble and did not get in a car accident or kill anybody or kill himself. It's. I think that has to also be part of it too, where it's like these guys are thankfully. Not always going to have the fate that befell Henry Ruggs and the person involved in that accident. So
yeah, Floyd the Barber says, didn't the Bucs start their franchise out with like a 1-27 record while wearing those uniforms? Yes.
Throwback.
El Conipcion, can Bradley please take a good look at last year's San Antonio Spurs teal Fiesta jerseys inspired by the All-Star game that came to town in the 90s and give his take? I love those All-Star jerseys. They were a staple at college parties, now that we're on that train of thought for a while. But, yeah. It's, Yeah,
these are amazing.
Yeah, I don't doubt
Absolute love.
I knew you would.
Hard endorsed.
And so did El Conipcion. Yeah. All right, I think you called back, calling from a 937 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Drew from Ohio.
Drew from Ohio. What's on your mind?
Well, I obviously don't get to catch every single episode, but I've never heard you guys talk about disc golf before, so it's going to be a little unusual. But
we certainly have not talked about disc golf, so I appreciate your expertise because I know nothing.
Well, during COVID, disc golf exploded because it was just something to do. Public parks weren't closed.
Mm-hmm.
So from 1980, they had till 2021, they had 100,000 PDGA members, and that's tripled in the last 2 years now. And that's serious players. So it's getting really big. The pros have $1 million contracts now. Some of the tournaments, you win 35 grand. So it's gotten a lot more professional over the last couple years, and that's coincided with obviously a wider acceptance of trans people in society. Sorry, I'm a little nervous.
You're all good.
No worries.
But I know you guys talk about trans issues in sports and stuff, and disc golf actually has a really interesting circumstance with that right now because there's a trans woman named Natalie Ryan that kind of gained popularity last year, and she won 2 Pro Tour tournaments, which is pretty good. And now this year they came out with a policy based on very spurious articles and stuff, not scientific studies, that has effectively made it so trans people can't compete anymore. And as they've traveled around the country for the tour, Natalie has sued them in certain states like California and Minnesota and gotten injunctions. So she's been allowed to play a couple tournaments and then can't play the majority of them. And this is big back and forth thing in court. And now they're trying to go to federal court over it. So it actually could be like a pretty important case, a precedent-setting case, because there's not a lot of legal cases about this right now. But it's cost the PDGA and the Pro Tour hundreds of thousands of dollars in lawsuits, and it's a pretty big deal right now. So I just thought it would be something that would be interesting to you guys, because I know you mentioned stuff on that front, and this seems like a little more intense than a lot of the other bouts in this area, the trans people in sports thing.
All right, well, we'll check out that story.
Yeah,
Thank you for the heads
very,
up.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, I can send you guys some articles and interviews about it, too. I'll send them to you guys so you can take a look at them.
majorityreporters@gmail.com would be lovely. Thank you.
All right. Yep, thank you, guys.
Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks, Drew.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap up. Sorry about that. Turn on the voicemail. Turn off the phone lines. Read some IMs, and we'll get out of here. Majority Report wardrobe coordinator, Emma, rating teen uniforms. Just go see Barbie already. I kid. Well, that's where I'm headed next.
What a girly girl.
I know. I'm so excited, though. I'm going with my my three
excited
best
for
college friends and my best high school friend, who has become friends with those college friends. I mean,
it's a good time. Good time had by all.
I really, I made it
worlds.
happen. I mean, I am the connecting tissue, and it feels pretty good.
I think I know we talked about this obviously for any fans of the Majority Report as well. We had when we talked about this with Matthew Film Guy, but like I think this was like kind of one of the most, like, especially like since COVID, like probably since COVID started in 2020, probably the most like impactful like box office weekend by a long shot.
Oh, for me, the most exciting, and coincidentally both contain Christopher Nolan, but like the hype for The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
After The Dark Knight happened, I mean, I saw the midnight premiere of that with my friends in high school. And that is the and then there was that horrible Aurora shooting, not to like to be too, but that's always associated with it. But like that was the last weekend I remember everyone being in my life being so excited. Black Panther,
right?
Black Panther was big, which
but it was just kind of amazing.
Marvel movie I enjoy.
But it was just kind of amazing since obviously COVID hit, that like a lot of the reports about the swooning box office and the swooning film like, you know, for theater goers and stuff, and to see like multiplexes like packed to the gills like early in the morning in certain places, people dressing up for these movies, like having it be kind of like a cultural event together with even like coining the phrase of like Barbenheimer. Like, it's a little off topic on it, but I just thought it was like pretty cool to witness. Like, I was happy about it. I think it's great for the movies. You know?
It's good for the movie theaters. We needed that. I mean, in the middle of like, you know, just all of these movie theaters closing down, and they're AMC experimenting with this garbage, you know, tiered pricing system based on where you sit. There needed to be some sort of influx of cash into the industry before it just all became streaming. And for me, you know, I used to go to a movie a week when I was like years ago, basically, at, you know, this little indie theater where I grew up, which was pretty cheap. Or at least a few a month. It was just like my favorite thing to do. It's such a wonderful outing that isn't that expensive, that you can do with a friend or something like that, and share and talk about the experience later. I'm a big movie person, and so it was just great. It was just great to like to behold. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you think afterwards. I will say I saw Oppenheimer this weekend, and man. Before we go, I'll just give my quick thoughts.
Shit.
I liked the movie, okay? I thought the politics were better than I expected. They did do a good job of focusing on the anti-communism. And also the horrific power of what that weaponry really was, what a nuclear bomb is. But I just gotta say, like, Christopher Nolan needs a screenwriter. The dialogue is atrocious. It's so bad sometimes, especially the women, especially the female characters. Emily Blunt's character, this is not a spoiler, I mean, she has a drinking issue. If you know the woman from history, I think it's not, you know, it's pretty readily available information. She's taken a swig out of a flask. Every freaking shot. or it's falling out of her back.
Oh.
I mean, Christopher Nolan, how many times do we need to see Emily Blunt drinking out of a flask for us to understand the point? Because it was maybe like 17 times versus what we could have gotten the picture by 3. It's just like, and yeah, it whatever. And he's really bad at writing women. Says Ken Show. I never peeped the YouTube chat, but I just did. Yes, he's very bad at writing women, and that was not fixed this film. And just in general, like, I mean, the dialogue has no subtlety. The thing that sells it, though, is that the actors involved in this film, and some actors who are not even listed, who play, say, historical figures that you will be interested to see who plays who, including somebody who plays a president who you would not even recognize. I found out later who it was and was shocked. But some great Oscar-winning actors who pop up at certain points that you would not expect, and they just sell it all. And then of course just like the practical visuals are amazing. But yeah, I just like I still feel this way, that Christopher Nolan films are somewhat films for people to feel smart when they watch it, and then they think about it, and it's actually kind of dumb, like Interstellar. Oppenheimer is much better than Interstellar. But like that's why he was so good at The Dark Knight or something like that. It's not too heady. He's not working backwards from scientific mathematical equation and then making a script based on it. And Oppenheimer also had a set structure that he was able to work with. So that's where he's more. That's the lane he's best in. Nolan. Anyway.
Yeah, I haven't seen either yet, so but I'm looking forward to it.
This was the me talking about myself portion of the show.
Yeah.
So
the Emma Vanity Land.
Yes.
Hour.
Yeah, the Vanity Hour. I mean, hey.
My name on the sign. It's my name on the door.
Do you see the V? You see the E?
Yeah.
Okay,
All
that's
right.
me.
Yeah.
Huh?
Shh.
I guess talk about what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, guys. Appreciate you all. We will see you on Monday. We'll be talking more and more as training camp opens up.
Oh,
the
can't
NFL
wait.
is coming back. This is our big topic. This is the thing we care most about, I would say, as a podcast. So check us out. We'll be back on Monday. Appreciate you all. Subscribe. Get us to 10K.
We're so close.
Appreciate you all.
Bye.